and joining us, and I am hoping to hear the sound of Edmonton Oilers practicing for the morning skate. Mike Maniscalco, the voice of your Carolina Hurricanes on FanDuel TV. Are you ready for the new color scheme and the new symbols?
Well, you'll have to tune in to find out, but it's FanDuel Sports Network.
Oh.
As you know, Adam, you have to get these things right.
Yes.
So join us on FanDuel Sports Network tonight at 8:30 as it all starts with Hurricanes Live, brought to you by Lenovo. I'll hit all of the brands here before we even get a question.
Do we have more? We got a couple. So okay.
And then you can stick around for Hurricanes Live, the postgame show, brought to you by Lenovo. If those of you on the East Coast will be up at 12:30, which I hope that you will be.
Of course they will be. We have a podcast to get to after the game, like we do all the time. All right. So I was on with the guys in Charlotte this morning, and they asked me about the Hurricanes, and I said I was going to give them two positives and a negative. We could sit here all day and talk about this guy, that guy, this guy. Mm-hmm. Is there a bigger positive? Because I think there are two really good ones, and I'm talking about three new players, essentially. Then the way Jackson Blake has put himself into the conversation to the point where Rod bumped him up to play with Jesperi Kotkaniemi and Marty Necas in the third period in St. Louis.
No, that's certainly been, the feel-good story so far of the early part of this season, and we're in the very early part of the season. But, Rod said it about Jackson Blake. He earned his way onto the team, and he did. If you go back and see how he played in the preseason. He plays the game the way that Rod Brind'amour wants this team to play. And he's very smart. He's got let's use the high hockey IQ, and we'll get that one out of the way. But, the way he sees the game and then the way he plays, his first goal in the NHL, that's what a veteran does, to know to dart to the front of the net, to see where Dmitry Orlov is and what he's thinking, and to get his stick on the deflection and the way that he works. So, that's been a great story. I'd also like to add he's a new-ish face. We only saw him for a couple of months the first time around, but Shane Gostisbehere, I think, has been another very positive story, and you can spin that into a whole package of, forget game one if you want to, throw it out, how the power play's gotten better with him quarterbacking it, and then the pairing of him and Sean Walker has been, for me, the last three games, a big positive for the Carolina Hurricanes.
You have also read the game notes. The game notes, I did not realize. It's something I would have looked up at some point just to see how it was analytically speaking, but the Ghost Walker tandem, they have been awesome. Arguably one of the best in the NHL. And the funny part is that in terms of the possession metrics, while they're not the direct replacement for Shea and Pesce, they were like one of the best possession metric tandems in the NHL over the 3 years that they were together. So it's interesting that they have been as successful, but defensively they've been good too.
Yeah, and I think that was, for me, the biggest question mark of that pairing, how it was going to work when the lights came on for real, because you play in the case of Sean Walker, you play in different systems for your career. How the Carolina Hurricanes play defense, it is a little different. And, veteran defenders have come here. Brent Burns said he didn't really feel comfortable. I know that you and I have talked about this before, until February, his first season in Carolina playing D, because you get so accustomed to playing a certain way. And what the Canes ask you to do is slightly different. Rod gives us the great answer. Everybody does the same thing. Well, it's how do you do the different things that everybody does the same? And this pairing has just, they've been taken to it like a duck to water. They've been outstanding. They play well off of each other, and I think that they are what you said. You didn't want to look at them to be the direct replacement, but they are for a combo that for the last 4 years had been outstanding for the Hurricanes and Rod Brind'amour.
Mike Maniscalco, voice of the Carolina Hurricanes on the FanDuel Sports Network?
FanDuel Sports Network.
All right, very cool. You didn't even mention the Fanatics sponsorship. I don't know if you can do that at the same time. That's like water and electricity. All right, so let me get to what I found, and it's kind of a backhanded negative. It's only a negative because of what didn't happen out of it. But the Hurricanes dominated the first two periods. By the way, the way they played against the Devils was awesome. They completely bossed the game. Then they do the same thing against Pittsburgh, but after two periods, it's only 3-1, and I was nervous coming out of that because you know how dangerous Pittsburgh has been offensively so far this year. They get an early goal. Now the game is completely flipped when you have owned them for 40 minutes. Fortunately, even though Pittsburgh got a penalty, got a power play, it didn't connect, and the Canes got the next goal anyway to make it 4-1, and they coasted the game out. But it bit them against St. Louis in that they dominated the first period, score early, but that was it, because that was a game that they could have created more separation. So they're going to have to figure out, I think, they're going to have to figure out how to cash in on some more of these opportunities.
Yeah, and nobody likes to hear this, but they did get goalied a little bit by Joel Hofer and the St. Louis Blues. You know, he was coming off of a 34-save shutout win over the Islanders that he was brilliant. And that game in the first period should have been, you know, you look at the numbers, that game should have been 3-0 Carolina heading into the second period. And I would tell you that the Canes probably of the two road games, they've been the better team in 5 of the 6 periods that they played. The second period was a little uneven. And, you know, even though St. Louis didn't score on their 2 power plays in the second period, they got momentum off of them, and that's when they scored 3 in a row. What I was encouraged was the Canes came out in the third period and tied the game at 3. And then it's, you know, a bouncing puck that Marty Necas has a hard time handling, and maybe there's a bit of a slow change that doesn't help Carolina in the defensive zone. And, you know, Kasperi Kapanen, you know, channels his dad, Sammy, and turns on the speed and scores a goal that turns out to be the game winner. But, you know, the fact that the game didn't end 3-1 when you were playing a back-to-back, and you could have kind of said, all right, well, we got a whole bunch more left on this trip. You know, that they got it to a tie game. That was encouraging to me. And again, it's early, and you're going to, you know, that's the weird thing about this game. You know, you can dominate for 50 minutes. You know, the other night against the Dallas Stars, Edmonton, for 39 minutes and 30 seconds, they were great. I mean, they were better than Dallas, and then they give up a late goal in the second period and get their doors blown off in the fourth by Dallas. So, you know, it's how the game can be funny if you don't find a way to beat a goaltender or if a goalie gets hot and can keep the team in the game. But, you know, there were a few things that I was encouraged. And the other thing I'm encouraged about, Adam, not to say, hey, everything's great, but the penalty kill is now 9 for its last 9 on this road trip. That's against Pittsburgh, like you mentioned, that's pretty good. And against St. Louis, that has got some guys who can put the puck in the net. That's pretty good. We'll see tonight. You would imagine that when we talk about McDavid and Draisaitl, the number 1 power play in the league, they have 1 power play goal through 6 games.
1 out of 15.
I mean, so.
Yeah, it's just incredible. And the penalty kill has been bad, and the penalty kill was almost perfect in the playoffs a year ago. All right, one more thing from Mike Maniscalco. I have talked to a ton of Yankee fans all year long, and even though the Yankees had the best record in the American League, there was supreme doubt that this was a team that was going to end up in the World Series and probably a slight favorite. I haven't looked at the FanDuel odds yet, but probably a slight favorite to beat the Dodgers based on maybe starting pitching and the fact that they've got 3 guys in the middle of their lineup that are just grossly good, not to mention other players. Where were you? Where are you on this Yankees team as we head into the World Series? The most played World Series matchup in baseball history.
Oh, I mean, I look at the Dodgers and Dave Roberts and just immediately default to 2004 and somebody stealing bases in a series that should have been well over in the American League Championship Series. And, you know, the Dodgers have a winning pedigree, too, right now. Yeah. And there is something about that where the Yankees, you know, this team, we've expected it for a couple of years, and it hasn't happened, and now it's here. So I hate to say this comes down to 2 players, Adam, but for me, I think the fascinating thing about this World Series will be, does Shohei Ohtani hit when nobody's on base and start to keep the things moving for the Dodgers? And does Aaron Judge be the MVP that Aaron Judge is for this Yankees team? Do we see that? Those 2 guys, I think, are the key, because if you get I'm expecting everything else to be the same. And by the way, it's Babe Stanton or Giancarlo Ruth, whatever you want to call him. His numbers are unbelievable to me in the postseason.
Yeah.
If anybody hasn't looked it up, I'm a Yankee fan, and I looked at his numbers, and I'm like, yeah, well, that sample size has got to be small, and it's not.
Yeah.
So it comes down to that, and for me, it always comes down to one thing: can you get the outs when you need them? And there's a few things about that Yankees bullpen, while it's been good, a few things in that Cleveland series, even though it was 4-1, that could be a little distressing if you're a Yankee fan. But, I'm going to go in and thinking, yeah, they got a really good chance to win this thing, and they should. I think it's going to – it's going back to L.A. I don't think that this thing is over in 4 or 5. That's my thought on the series.
The Yankees blew 2 late leads. They blew a late lead in Game 3, and they blew a late lead in Game 4. But they ultimately rallied to win Game 4 and then Game 5. Be on the lookout for Tommy Edman, whatever that dude is, who had 11 runs batted in the 6 games against the Mets in the National League Championship Series. I hate that kid. I hate him now. He's worse than David Eckstein for me. And I couldn't stand him.
My.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow,
Mike Maniscalco.
That's high praise from you, Adam.
I know.
Seriously.
I know. Mike, thank you for your time, man. We'll be watching and listening on the radio as
Excellent.
Well. To you and Tripp. Tell Tripp I said hello, and I will talk to you guys later.
I hope you got enough Nat sound from Oilers practice. Pleasure to be here.
I love it. Love it. I love the sound of hockey practice and BP. 2 best sounds in sports.
Excellent, Adam. I'll talk to you later down the road.
All right. Take care. Mike Maniscalco here on the Adam Gold Show.